What is up, everyone? Zoe Nightingale here. I am so excited for my next podcast episode. In this one, we're going to dive deep into the world of public defense. I've got a next level human who's going to take us through the ins and outs of how it works from the very inside and all the different ways in which our judicial system and our carceral system is fucked. I want to remind you that my episode is brought to you by promescent.com. Head on over to their website and check out all of the dope shit they've got available for you. You can get 15% off your order by putting my name, Zoe15, into the checkout box. Now, without further ado, let's all learn together just how fucked our judicial system really is.
My name is Emily Galvin Almanza. I am the co-founder and co-executive director of a program called Partners for Justice. And basically, what that means is my true identity is that I am a public defender. I am a public defender through and through. My first job out of law school was as a public defender. I have been working in various ways to help people get out of trouble and stabilize and move forward with their lives as intact as possible for a really long time. The reason I left that work, which I love more than anything in the world, was to start this kind of radical direct service program. And what I mean by radical direct service is most people who are trying to change the system try to do it with policy changes and media and narrative and storytelling, which is awesome and super important. Changing the law and the structures that govern us, really important. But the thing is, if you are sitting in a jail tonight, and you're worried that you're going to get fired because you're going to miss your shift in the morning because there's no way you're going to see a judge before noon tomorrow, all of that policy work doesn't really matter. What matters is who is going to call your boss and save your job. So I started this program to basically recruit incredible young people who are willing to take a leap of faith right out of college to go to America's jails and public defenders' offices and basically say yes to pretty much whatever people need within reason. We do housing, we do employment, we do drug treatment, we do behavioral health treatment, we do education stabilization, we get people benefits, we will get your car back if it gets taken by the cops, we will protect your dog if you're going to do 2 weeks in jail. The goal is to say yes, figure out what people need, do it, and help them move forward.
Oh my actual God. Wow. So where did you go to school? Who are you? Where did you grow up? Give me a little bit more about you so I can just tell people a little bit about who you are.
I grew up kind of all over. My parents are both poets. So becoming a lawyer was not the obvious path. Not really met a lawyer except for one time when I got arrested when I was 15. I grew up kind of wandering around between Iowa City, Iowa and Laramie, Wyoming, and spending some time with family in Italy. So I don't really have a clear, coherent geographical backstory, but I wandered with my parents and went to public school. So I went to college really young. I went to college when I was 16. I went to Harvard and had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was super lost and just like a little motorcycle jacket wearing pugnacious kid from public school in a very privileged ivory tower environment. So it wasn't exactly an obvious social fit for me. But I spent years kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an actor. I thought I wanted to be a writer. I moved to Hollywood. I had a failed engagement. I drove my car around crying and having small accidents. And eventually, because the person I had been with had thought he might want to go to law school. And I was like, well, great. I'll just take the LSAT class, in case he wants to go so that I'm not doing anything better. I'll just go with him. And then I was like, well, I went to the trouble of taking this class. I'm going to forget everything unless I just take the stupid test. And then I'll have my score and I'll put it away and I won't do anything with it. So I took the test and I got a decent score. And I was like, okay, that's not going to happen again. So I will apply to some schools, see where that goes. Applied to some schools, got into Stanford, which was amazing. And I was like, that's really, really lucky. And that's not going to happen again. So I was finishing a book of, this is so dorky. I was writing a book of poems based on mathematical formulas at the time. So I was like, I'll defer for a year and I'll finish my book of math poems. And then if in a year I'm not doing anything better, I will go. So a year went by and the relationship ended explosively. And I was, like I said, driving around crying and having small car accidents. I had nothing better going on. I was writing movie taglines for a living, which literally meant my job was making puns all day, every day. And so I packed up my cat and I drove from LA to Palo Alto.
Do you put it in like a suitcase?
No, it was awesome. This cat would like ride on the dashboard and shove his little face right out onto the windshield because he liked to feel like he was going insanely fast. He was an amazing companion. But yeah, I got there and the rest is just me falling in love with criminal law because it's got the best story.
I just need to be clear with people, and you're not going to like that I say this, but because you haven't said it, it is very odd that a woman of how you look would be a mathematical poet. Yeah, you know, I mean, just to be clear, because this is an audio show, people can't see you. You are a beautiful American woman. You are like blonde. You've got like baby doll blue eyes. How does a girl so hot end up still being smart? How did you do that?
I think I actually only grew into like my face 34. Good to be a slow burner. You want to be just like acne-ridden, bad teeth, triangle hair, braces, all of that in high school, because then you develop an incredibly robust personality.
Yeah, and a sense of survival skills. Okay, good. So we've at least established that you're hot. That's important. And we know now that you're a super nerd of the highest caliber, which is very important. Is it possible to read me a mathematical poem?
Yeah, no. So basically it's like this. Let's take Euclid's algorithm, where you're taking two numbers and you're trying to find basically their greatest common divisor. And you're kind of running through these numbers back and forth. That makes a natural dialogue. And what's even better is two numbers finding the number that is their common divisor is a great format for two people whose relationship is falling apart. They can talk about what's breaking them up.
And it all came out of heartbreak?
I'd started in college because this is the thing. This is actually a great message to any young people who are listening to this program. If you do something weird, people will think you're smarter than you are. So when you're in the English department and you start bringing in math, people are really impressed, even if your math skills are like pretty low level, which mine are. They are not super impressive. But by mixing the two disciplines, you can get away with a lot. So it was my thesis, was this idea of putting complex math and number theory into poems. And then I graduated and I was kind of working on these things and writing new things and, love poems. And then I had this phenomenally explosive breakup. I broke away from the really strict forms I'd been using and went into some more sort of thematic and geometric stuff, which was really just angry breakup letters, which then turned into this weird thing of like letters from a post-apocalyptic world, which I guess seems relevant now. I'm like scribbling in a notebook and like...
Yeah, like Rain Man, got it, yeah. Definitely 2 before 5 before haiku before 1, yeah, got it. So, all right, I understand just a tad about you, which is the best. And how does a girl go from counting the spaces between algorithms to make love sonnets to a lover that broke her heart to becoming a badass criminal justice warrior?
It actually makes perfect sense. If you are someone who connects with stories and pain in other people, you're going to connect with criminal law. Because in a world, when you go to law school, it's like, here's contracts, here's torts, which is like bad stuff you can do to people that's not a crime, that's usually just about money. Here's, civil procedure, the rules of the game. The class where you get into the truly dramatic and horrifying and shocking and heartbreaking stories is criminal law. And I realized like all the other kids had like read 6 books on how to go to law school and they brought like all their colors of highlighters and they were like ready. I just showed up kind of with no idea what I was doing. And I realized that because I connected so instantly with the stories in this body of law, I could remember the legal rules governing the stories and the sort of interplay of procedure and narrative. So I felt like I connected. And so from there, it made sense to head to the public defender's office because here's the thing, if you like criminal law, there's really only 2 jobs you can do. You can be a defender or a prosecutor. If you're a prosecutor and you're really good at your job, you at some point are going to mess up and lock somebody up who shouldn't be in a cage. This was at a time when I was still thinking now, at this point, I don't think there should be cages. But back then I was like, well, I don't want to put an innocent person in prison. And if I'm going to be a defender and I'm going to be really good at it, at some point, I'm going to set somebody free who totally did the thing they're accused of. And that's actually fine with me because I believe in redemption and second chances and the human capacity to change. And I don't believe in locking innocent people in cages. So I went to the LA County Public Defender's Office. Never looked back.
What I would love to do is set up for people. Not everybody went to Harvard by accident and then Stanford by kismet. Not everybody has a brain like that. A lot of people don't know much about how this stuff works. So is there a way that we could explain a little bit of, like, from start to finish how the system would work?
The system we have is like a mashup of British common law from when we were colonies and attempts to re-enslave Black people.
Did they teach you that at Stanford, or did you learn that on your own?
I learned that actually after Stanford. The place I should have learned it is in 10th grade American history class. Like, that is where it should be taught. It's not like a metaphor. Like when people say, oh, our system emerges from slavery, you're like, yes, in terms of its ideology. No. Like, actually, when Black people were freed, states got together and had commissions to create these things called Black codes, which were criminal laws designed to criminalize fairly ordinary behavior that they thought they could nab Black people for. Why? Because the 13th Amendment allows you to work if it is for the purpose of punishment for a crime. So if you are a person who has been emancipated, but then you can be nabbed on like a trespassing charge or some low level offense, you can be then leased back to the slaveholder in your community. So it was designed as a mechanism to get around the constitutional amendment. And so much of what we see today, and it's like, why is our system dramatically racist? Like, not even defensible. And it's just like, it is a system to lock up Black and brown people, I think, because that is what it emerges from. So starting from that point, in a typical case, what you're going to see is, first of all, you don't see arrests happening for the most part in well-to-do white neighborhoods. You see policing happening in Black and brown neighborhoods. There are neighborhoods where if you're growing up as a Black kid in a hyper-policed zone, you're going to start having police contact as a child. I remember Defender friends working in juvenile units who were getting 14-year-olds who had already talked to cops hundreds of times. So this contact starts really, really early. So if you're sitting in the public defender's office and let's say you're in a jurisdiction that's doing a really good job, right? Which means that you're present at the first time a person gets arrested when they first see a judge. If you're a defender, you want to be there as early as possible, because the earlier you're there, the more chance you have to really impact the case and do a good job. So you're meeting someone, say in the Bronx, the night they've been arrested. What have they been arrested for? I've noticed over many, many years of doing this work that people really give police a lot of credit for nabbing the right people, the quote unquote right people, like people who did the thing that they are accused of doing. And in fact, like, I found a shocking proportion of the time I was sitting in front of a person who actually hadn't done anything wrong, who was like near the person who did something, or looked like, because it's a racist system, the person would say, you've got a terrified person in front of you sitting in a cage who you are meeting, and it is your job to get them out of the cage. How do you do that? You go through the charges. Let's say this is a person who is accused of robbing a convenience store. There is probably video of this robbery. This person is saying they had nothing to do with it. There's no evidence connecting them to the robbery other than the police officer's word. You have to go in front of a judge who's going to look at the person you're standing next to and see an armed robber and convince them that your person is actually a local auto mechanic who has nothing to do with this. And when the video finally is found, your person will not be on the video. That's never enough to get somebody out of a cage. You also have to make the case that this is a person who, this is so stupid, basically is worthy of being treated like a human. If you're Harvey Weinstein and you walk into a courtroom, you walk in with a team of lawyers and you're automatically treated like a human being in spite of being Harvey Weinstein. But if you are a Black or brown person in the Bronx, you're walking into a courtroom where court officers literally refer to the people who have been arrested as bodies, not even people. The defendant, the body, the ex-con, the felon, the inmate. It is just a world of dehumanizing language that is designed to let judges and prosecutors put humans in cages and feel okay about it, feel like they did the right thing. So you have to go in front of a judge and tell this person's story of who they are as a parent, as an employee, as a mentor, as a community member, as a resident, in a way that humanizes them and compels the judge to see them as someone who is responsible, who will come back to court, will meet their obligations, and hope to get that person home to their family. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If a person is not released, they are sent to jail, which by and large is dramatically worse than people imagine it is. It is scary and dangerous. And right now with a pandemic, it's potentially a death sentence. And you've got people right now getting essentially a death sentence of COVID for low-level charges where they can't get out on bail. At that point, if you're the defender in a traditional system, it's your job to defend the criminal case, to fight back against the charges, to find evidence that exonerates your client, or to find a problem with the prosecutor's case, or to find a mistake the police made that can let you suppress certain evidence, et cetera. That's where these systems diverge for me. Because for me, when I again think of like the wealthy person's legal team, that's not what their lawyers do. Their lawyers defend them on the criminal case and cater to their needs and support them and make sure that they have protection in a civil employment suit that might happen. They give this sort of wraparound, holistic type of defense, which recognizes that people are complicated and situations are complicated. And the person at the center of all of this needs many, many, many forms of support. No matter how competent or capable or impressive they may be, they need a lot. So holistic defense, which is what's practiced at Bronx Defenders, where I went from my early days in California, is this recognition that we should all be collaborating, like criminal defenders and employment lawyers and immigration lawyers and family defenders and social workers. We should all be working together to make sure that what we're doing is defending the whole person against anything the government is trying to do to that person, instead of just fighting the criminal case.
On average, how much time is a public defender spending gathering evidence, getting and like trying to if they're in fact doing a holistic system? Like, what kind of time is this per person?
Oh gosh, so it totally depends on where you are, right? Because one thing, here's something I can say: all good defenders basically spend every waking minute working, because even if you're not physically at the office, you're like worried about some client, right, or answering your cell phone at 2 a.m. to be like, Jason, do not call her.
Yeah. So you're like a therapist also.
Totally. I actually found that public defense is a great preparation for any form of catering to the needs of a person who is in crisis. It's really good. So you can assume that a good defender probably pretends to have work-life balance, actually doesn't.
So how many cases do you usually have at a given time?
That's what varies. In the Bronx, my caseload would be anywhere from the incredibly luxuriously low number of like 90 cases.
At once?
Yes. That's really low.
Oh my God. Oh no.
Then you look at parishes in Louisiana where a lawyer right out of law school might get 400 felony cases in a box and be told, go figure this out.
How the hell do you prioritize that? Is there a number system? Is there like a deli? How do you do this?
Everybody does it differently. So for me, I prioritize by when is the next bad thing going to happen? Whoever's got the next crisis coming up, it's like being a short order cook.
90 cases at once?
Well, I mean, they're not all like happening on the same day. Every day you're going to court on a few of them.
How do you stay organized? What's your calendar look like? Are you using a written calendar? How are you doing this?
I loved my written calendars. I had a really big monthly book. It was my most prized possession. If I lost that calendar, I lost
like 65 people go to jail.
The idea of not being where I'm supposed to be at any given time still gives me extreme agita.
And each case comes with families, girlfriends, children. So the weight of each of these people's freedom is in your heart for 90 people probably at a time.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, I feel a little weird talking about my experience of it, because to me, immediate response is you should be talking to a person who was arrested, their mom.
Oh no, I talked to them too. No, don't worry. So how much, and this is a rude question, but I'm a Jew and I'll feel bad about it. When you take a job as a public defender, are you also taking a huge pay cut?
It's a really exciting issue. So pay parity, right? Some states have it down. Like there are defenders in California who are making dramatically more money than me and have a full pension to retire on, and that's fabulous. There are defenders in other regions who are making, in some regions you wouldn't expect, like some very well-funded blue states are still paying their defenders starting salaries around less than $40,000 a year.
So $40,000 a year to work. Give me the amount of hours. Let's make up a number. I know you say all day, every day. So should we call it
80 hours a week?
Is it 100 hours a week?
No, it's probably 80 hours a week. I don't think, for some people during trial, yes, it's 100, but it's also saddled with law school loans. This issue though, right now is being fought less at like attorney salary level and more at general office funding level, because beyond just the attorney salaries, what changes your quality of life as a lawyer is whether you have an investigator who could go out and get that videotape of the supposed bodega robbery for you, or whether you have to go get it yourself, whether you have a social worker who can sit with your client and help them find a really great supportive treatment program, or whether you have to do that yourself. So if your office has better funding, you can have more people working together, which makes everybody's job both more effective and better. And when we look at parity between DAs and defenders, it's really, really bad. And when you consider the fact that the police essentially function as the investigatory arm of the prosecutor, so you should really consider DA budget and police budget versus little public defender budget, the disparity is shocking.
And so they have a ton more resources to come after possibly an innocent person to prosecute them incorrectly.
Yeah. And the more resources means the ability to hire experts. Hiring experts is really complicated because some experts are amazing, motivated intellectuals obsessed with a certain thing. Some experts are kind of gun for hiring, and they have a lot of credibility with juries. So being able to hire experts is huge, especially like think about something like DNA. Everybody thinks DNA, like, oh, they found his DNA there. He was totally there. Well, actually, if you shake my hand and then I buy a Gatorade and I leave that Gatorade on the bus stop, your DNA might be on my Gatorade at the bus stop. Talking about transfer DNA or how DNA, now that our detection mechanisms are so minute, you can have such a small fraction of DNA on something that it doesn't actually tell you much about who it was that touched that thing. So having experts to interpret stuff like that costs money.
Does your entire department have a budget that you split equally, or do you make a case to take money from them? Like, how does that money get distributed?
I think in pretty much every context, you have to make a case for it. In the Bronx, you would go to the trial chief and say, like, hey, I have this case. Here's what's going on. Here's the expert I need. Here's the person. And generally, that was supported. But most defenders don't have it that good. A lot of them have to actually go to the judge in their trial and apply for court funding, ask the court to fund the defense expert. And you can imagine how well received that is by a system that's designed to see everyone as guilty. In my vision of what the system should be, there's very little role at all for police and prosecution, and it's very restorative. But like, let's operate within our current system. If you just took out every incident that happened because of someone's poverty, behavioral health condition, substance use, or youth, you would take out masses of the system, because all of those things, all of those are transient conditions. Poverty, you should be able to, in a fair society, fix with various mechanisms of support. Substance use, behavioral health conditions, those are generally medically treatable. Youth too, though, like people grow out of youth.
Do they? Do they always? I feel like my friends haven't quite grown out of youth.
I think that if we took out anything where we knew that the person had done something wrong because of a thing about their brain that is not their fault, we would really cut how much stuff is flowing through the system. And I mean violent stuff too. I mean, like, you wouldn't believe how many schoolyard fights are getting prosecuted as felonies. Prosecutors are accustomed to charging the highest level charge that they can argue meets what happened.
Where is the system that taught them to do that? Because do they get bonuses or something if they put people in jail?
I do understand that most of them, I believe, come to this from a place of wanting to keep people safe and wanting to stop bad guys from doing bad things. And there's a rigidity to that way of thinking and a failure to recognize
nuance,
how complicated humans are. But I also think that in their offices, you get a lot of people who want to become prosecutors to change the system from the inside, which always makes me really sad when I hear that. Because I'm like, oh, you're going to quit your job after about 9 months. Because these offices generally are built to incentivize winning. Why is that bad and actually illegal? Prosecutors are unique among lawyers. The lawyer's ethical obligation is always to defend their client, to represent their client's interests, except for prosecutors. They have a unique ethical duty to do justice. So they're not supposed to try to win. They're supposed to try to do the right thing. But in the legal world, where everyone is trained to win, you get these offices where they've completely abandoned the idea that sometimes doing justice is not prosecuting, holding back, giving somebody a way out, not charging the highest possible offense. And you get offices that promote people. And yeah, they don't give bonuses, but generally advancing people up the chain in an office based on how many years in prison they secure, based on how many trial wins they get. So the incentives are, I think, unethical beyond belief.
If you had your perfect world, what does the system look like for you?
I would want to see a world where our number one focus is not to punish the person, but rather to make sure it never happens again. Because those are really different things. And often giving somebody an opportunity to make amends or to do a lot of work on themselves to make it right. A sort of confrontation context, the truth and reconciliation idea, like all of that makes people much more likely to not do the thing again. Because what causes misconduct, right? Trauma, isolation, abuse, substance use, mental health problems. What do you get in prison? Trauma, isolation, abuse, drugs. So yeah, I think that I am optimistic that we could do away with the need for all this toxic crap we built.
When people say defund the police, what do you say to stuff like that? I mean, you've spent a lot of time in the police system.
So I think we've come to a point. Today's news was filled with a horrifying video of a man who had just broken up a fight, being shot 7 times in the back in front of his 3 kids. I feel like American police have kind of given us no choice at this point. This has been a summer of uprising and protest and demands for transformation. The killings have continued unabated. There was another one in New Jersey like 2 days ago. So as long as primarily Black men, but a lot of people are being killed at this rate, we can't say that police are improving public safety if they're killing people at traffic stops. That is not safe. We can say that they are making certain categories of people feel safer, but that's not the same as actually making the world safer. And the problem is that funding is the only tool left. Everything else has been tried. The NYPD that killed Eric Garner was an NYPD where implicit bias training and de-escalation training and like all of this training was already happening. It doesn't work. The culture of policing in America has become so violent and toxic and filled with violence and fear and violence in response to fear and heavy, heavy, heavy weaponry that there's no way to train them out of it. The only option left is to dissolve the bad thing and start again. And the way you do that is by moving money to something else. And that does not have to happen overnight. And I think what's really important to emphasize is that like no one is calling for a world in which you call 911 and nobody's there. I think all of these models contemplate the need for these very rare safety interventions. But the thing that we have to remember is the vast majority of what police do isn't that. It's not getting you out of the trunk of a car. It's showing up because your neighbor called the cops because there's like an unhoused person peeing in the street. I'm saddened that defund has gotten so much attention as a word, but we do need to move money to stuff that actually makes people safer and stuff that communities want. Isn't government supposed to respond to community needs?
Let's go backwards to like, can you give me some examples of cases that were categorically unfair and crazy that you had to deal with so people can just get an understanding of the kind of work you're doing and like what you're up against?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to change a lot of details, but I need to say it so that everybody knows.
Oh, yeah. I got it.
Crappy person who's telling other people's secrets. So, I mean, there's the innocence problem, right? I've represented people who were at the moment of arrest demonstrably could prove that they were in a different state when the thing happened. And police didn't care and assumed that these were forged credit card records and plane tickets and things and arrested them anyway and like tried to make them sit in jail for months.
Did you get them out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how long does it take to get them out, somebody who's innocent?
My first case, the case that traumatized me into being a public defender, was a homicide case where dozens of witnesses saw my client somewhere else at the time of the shooting. Saw him on the dance floor dancing with someone. Everybody remembered. The only witness who put him at the scene was a teenage runaway, and the cops told him he'd never see his mom again. They were going to bust him on drugs, and he'd never go home again unless he ID'd my client. He spent days apologizing on the witness stand saying, "I'm so sorry, I lied."
He said that he lied on the stand?
Yeah. The jury convicted my client. We spent the next decade working to get him out, but it took many tries. Yeah. There are a lot of innocent people sitting in prison right now as we speak. There are a lot of people who are not perfect, but also didn't do anything as bad as the state said they did. There are a lot of people who did a bad thing and are totally different people now than they were years and years ago. So I just want to cabin that as one. But there's also dramatic overreactions. And the person I just mentioned, I think, and I've changed enough details that I'm not revealing client confidences, but just this is just to say that innocence is real. And also less culpability than merits such a response is very real. Yeah, I mean, I think that youth is real. We see so many cases where 2 kids took another kid's backpack and they did it by punching the other kid. And that's charged as like a felony robbery with an assault with an intent to cause great bodily injury.
And what is that? What sentence does that come with?
It depends on the state, but we're talking with felonies like that, years and years in prison.
Oh, God.
being away from your mom and in a juvenile facility when you're 15, it doesn't like a week of that will change your life forever.
Right.
A day of that might change your life forever. Being arrested might change your life forever. You could lose college admission. You could lose a job. You could have to explain it to your employer and it can make things really difficult. You lose your benefits. If you're sitting in a cell for like 2 weeks, they cut off your food stamps. And if you're getting disability, you might lose your car or your property. Police can seize your property without you even being convicted of anything. It's called civil forfeiture. There have been documented cases of people driving across the country with their life savings in the glove box to live the American dream. They get stopped by the cops. The cops are like, that has to be drug money. It's mine now. You can lose everything. You know, the fact of an arrest for a parent who's in a difficult child custody dispute. It doesn't matter how wrongful that arrest is. It could be because they went over to their friend's apartment in a building in New York that is a public housing building, which gets policed in a way that is truly ludicrous. And they might have been accused of trespassing because they were there to visit a friend, not a resident. The friend's not home. Boom, there's your arrest that you then have to explain in your child custody case. Why were you arrested? Why were you in jail? Every single police contact has spirals and spirals of bad fallout for people. Think of the Park Slope mom who smokes weed is not getting busted in the same way that the Bronx mom who tested positive for marijuana because it stays in your system forever is going to have her kid taken away. White people do not get policed in the same way as Black and brown people. And that's in the jail context, in the parenting context, in the property context. There is no context in which the legal system is treating people equally. Let's talk about police abuse. Here's something that drives me up a wall. You can get arrested for resisting arrest. And quite frequently, we will see people who are arrested for resisting arrest who are grievously injured, where the police claim that they have been assaulted and injured. And the injury is to the knuckles of their dominant hand, or a sprained wrist in their dominant hand, because they hurt themselves beating your client and then charged your client with causing their injury.
That's a thing that passes in the court of law?
If the system was working right, the prosecutor wouldn't charge it, but they do. And if the system was working right, a judge would take one look at it and say, I'm dismissing this case in the interest of justice, goodbye. But they don't. And the process itself is so slow. And so, but I mean, every day you have to come to court to fight a case like this is a day you can't go to work. It's a day you can't pick your kids up from school or drop them off, a day of your life that's lost. So if you have to do that again and again and again in a jammed up, delayed courthouse system, at a certain point, you're going to take a plea just to make it stop, just to be able to live your life. Or if you're stuck in a cell, God forbid, you're going to take a plea just to go home. I mean, it doesn't matter how innocent you are. If you haven't seen your family in weeks and someone says, if you just say you did this misdemeanor thing, you can go home now, you plead guilty and go home. At trial, no, most defenders would have a field day with a resisting arrest case where the injury to the cop is something clearly caused. Over 95% of cases don't get to trial. Because we built a system where the process itself is so hard and the stakes are so high and the prosecutors have so much power that people get either frightened or worn down into taking a plea.
Oh, this makes me sick. We've identified a lot of the very real and very painful parts of this. Is there hope?
Yes, this is actually a great, it's sickening and it's awful and you should feel nauseous. Like if you don't feel nauseous at this point, like something wrong with you.
Well, it's not like I didn't know this. You have an incredibly beautiful and very articulate way of explaining all the different ways in which it's fucked. Yeah.
But here's why this is a moment to be hopeful. Up until a few years ago, no one gave a shit. I could talk about this stuff till I was blue in the face. And people were just like, yes, well, that's the system. And then they went back to watching Mariska Hargitay on Law & Order SVU, the perfect cop, doing the right thing, saving us all. And we lived in this culture where people were so divorced from each other's realities. White people in the suburbs were just 100% unaware of how many Black people were being killed by police all the time. But now, I think in part due to how many grotesque videos, I feel really conflicted about the videos because they are so traumatizing for people to watch. But they have awakened a lot of people to what's really happening. And the more these cases get reported, as journalists change the way they report these cases and listen more to impacted people and people in prisons and defendant, horrible word. But as the narrative power is moved more towards impacted people, and that's why I say I'm not the one who should be talking about them. I'm happy to talk about it, but as we give more and more narrative power, more platforms to people who've experienced this, we are seeing an interest and an appetite for change. I am not happy with the current Democratic candidates But they're leagues away from where they would have been 5 years ago.
You might have some opinions, I would imagine, on our VP pick.
She is such a typical model of how you gain power in this country. The route of prosecutor to politician is like a very well-trodden path. It almost feels like people were becoming prosecutors out of a sense of obligation. Oh, I have to prosecute people for 2 years if I want to run for office. That's gross. You should not have to put people in cages for years to be able to have a say in what our laws should be. And I'm not calling Kamala Harris gross. Do I think she was a progressive prosecutor? No. Do I think that it necessarily existed at the time she was doing this work? No. Do I admire anyone who has chosen the carceral system as a mechanism of responding to harm? No, I think that's a really bad mistake. On the other hand, I think that this is a moment of so much celebration for Black women who have been the backbone of the Democratic Party for generations. And I think that if I'm going to believe in everybody's ability to grow and change, I have to believe in hers, and I have to believe in her ability to learn and do better. So I am trying to not be a jerk.
Her record seems to be such as one of the people you've been fighting against this whole time.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I say I have to believe in everybody's ability to grow and change.
And do you think that she felt like she had to do that as a Black woman, like she couldn't be soft on people? I'm trying to imagine why a Black woman would do such a thing.
Would I ever know?
So she was like putting little Black kids in jail for no reason, like stealing waters and backpacks?
Yeah, and you know, prosecuting truancy cases and prosecuting parents who are experiencing homelessness. You know, that's really, really bad. I'm not going to try to make that not bad. That's really bad. I can't ever know why she made those choices. So I have to judge her based on what she will fight for now. In many ways, maybe it is good that so much heat has been applied to her record, because for one thing, it's got to make everybody who's being a prosecutor now in order to become a politician later think twice about their choices.
Okay, that's a silver lining.
That path. That's partly why I built this program. It's a radical direct service job, but it's also a leadership program for young people who want to start out in the trenches of poverty alleviation and public defense, and then have doors open for them to top law schools and journalism programs and like whatever they want to do. We will find them mentors and connections and mine our networks and get them the support to be the next generation of leaders. So my hope is that 10 years from now, there will be dramatically fewer prosecutor politicians and dramatically more defender politicians.
How can I get you all the money in the world? How much money? What is the amount of money that I would need to somehow raise for you? I'll fuck a billionaire. I'll do it. What is an amount of money that could like radically higher the amount of people that we could start to do real change? Big picture.
My program right now is really, really lean. Like we run on about $1 million a year, up to 6 sites across the country. But we want to get way bigger because we want to impact at least 10% of arrested people across the country.
Holy shit, 10%? And how many are there a year?
So it depends on who you ask, but there's a lot.
No matter the year.
5 million people churning through America's jails like 12 million times.
Oh
so it's a lot.
God.
I mean, we need to grow the program. Right now, I've got about 25 advocates working in the field. We need to bring that number up into the hundreds.
And so what is an amount of money that would do that?
I think we could still keep it lean. I think $5 million would really dramatically change.
$5 million.
Compared to most of the sort of nonprofit behemoths out there, we're very small, and we're not trying to be a nonprofit. Like my nightmare is to be one of those organizations, no longer flexible and lining my pockets. But we try to put as much money as we can back into our work in the communities. What it's going to is paying someone to sit with someone who needs help getting benefits to do that, and then retrieve their car from lockup and help find a new daycare program for their kid and recollect the dog who was seized at the time.
What states are you operating in right now?
We're in California, Texas, Louisiana, and Delaware.
Those are the randomest collection of states I ever heard. All right.
Delaware's a cool place to test new programs. I have to say, in Joe Biden's hometown, it was a great place to pilot the program because Wilmington is a really small city where you can get to know everybody really, really rapidly, but it has pretty robust problems in terms of racially biased carceral structures. And so piloted the program in Wilmington and Oakland, California. We spread to Houston, Texas. We're now opening in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And we are in talks with a lot of public defenders across the country.
Walk me through what great success means in this context.
Great success means a combination of getting people out of locked facilities. I mean any kind of locked facility, immigration detention, family to whatever you're talking, like getting people free and helping them move forward with as little damage to their life as possible. So that can mean, talking someone's employer out of firing them because of this arrest. That can mean getting a kid back into school. That can mean getting somebody into a jobs program that can lead to something really exciting. That can mean making sure that someone doesn't get kicked out of their housing because of this case. That can mean finding someone new housing. Like if everybody walks away from their case with a roof over their head, a way to make money, and whatever kind of supportive treatment they're going to need to move on with their life, we will dramatically improve safety. Like the thing that drops recidivism, the thing that drops people getting arrested again, housing, jobs, and treatment. Like that's the ball game. So if we're helping people be stable and not in a cage, we are improving safety in every jurisdiction where we work.
Okay, so you need $4 million. This seems like a really, you've found a way to do the help that helps, which is always like, what are the actual things that help? And this is like such a beautifully organized way to help. So amazing. You did such a good job.
It's weird that it didn't already exist. Like that's
why would it exist? We don't want people to be happy. Even if you're not in jail, like our society wants us locked in our houses, watching television, being brainwashed, buy more shit. It's all so fucked. But okay, so let's go back to hope. What are there other like people that people can vote for? Other cool things, projects people can support? Just give me any cool facts or things like that. So
there is so much that ordinary people can do right now to make a dramatic difference in the human caging system. So one thing is paying attention to your local prosecutor and sheriff elections. There are so many like public defenders running to be the DA and people who don't really want to be cops running to be sheriffs. That is really important. So many people just vote for whoever the Democrat is or vote for whoever the check the identity box they're looking for here. Like they don't pay attention. And that is life-changing for literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people every year. So check out your prosecutor election. If you have a bad prosecutor, figure out how soon you can vote them out. If nobody's running against them, talk your smart lawyer friend into running. That is a huge piece of the
How often is that election? 4 or 2 years?
It depends on the place. There's some very significant ones happening right now. There's a big one in LA right now, Jackie Lacey versus George Gascon, who came to town to knock out Jackie Lacey.
Who do we want? You got to be more specific.
I work for a 501c3.
Okay.
I have a lot of criticisms of Jackie Lacey's record that can probably be found on the internet and things I've written.
Okay. All right. So Jackie's out. All right.
Going to city council meetings and county council meetings, when they're thinking about how they're going to fund their public defender, when the public defender puts in a budget request and that budget request is being heard by the county council, be a citizen who shows up and says, hey, I want my public defender to be amazing in case my sister or brother or kid or mom ever.
Is there a microphone I can get on?
Yes.
Oh my God, yes. I would love that.
These days it's by Zoom much of the time, so you don't even have to get out of your house to yell at legislators about this. When the courts reopen, when we finally get to a place as a society where you can go out into places without possibly dying, court watching is an amazing form of bearing witness. So much of this stuff happens in rooms that nobody's in. People are allowed to treat other people really, really badly in rooms where nobody's watching. So go be a person who watches and then write about what you see. Even if you're just tweeting about it, that's massively powerful. That will get journalists talking about what you're seeing in these courtrooms. And it also makes judges feel like they have to do better because people are watching. That's really important too. Judges are often elected. That is a situation that can result in maximum yikes. So pay attention to judge elections. I think just rewarding publications and journalists that do great reporting on this. Because so often for journalists, it's they want to tell a story that they've learned from the family of someone who's in prison and from other people who are in prison. And they go to their editor and the editor's well, what does local law enforcement say? And let's trust the police. They're so habituated to trust the law enforcement source over impacted people. Reward journalism that listens to impacted people and follow journalists who Carrie Blakinger, Radley Balco, Aaron Morrison. Read it, tweet about it, promote it on Facebook. Their publications care about that. Donate to bail funds and mutual aid funds. That's another big one.
Okay, is it just bail funds? Is there names? Well,
it depends on where you are. They're all local. But bail funds generally are nonprofit organizations that will pay bail for people who meet certain conditions, usually very low-income people who are being held on something dumb. Right now, when pretty much everything that people are being held on is dumb and nobody can pay, bail funds are eliminating the system we've built where you can be jailed for your poverty. when you give money to a bail fund, they will then give that money to a person who needs to go home. Oh. And generally, they get the money back when the person returns to court. So it's actually a pretty nice, your dollars can be reused again and again to bail multiple people out.
Oh, that's awesome. I have a really quick question for you. In terms of like public versus privatized systems of prisons, who gets sent to private prisons and who gets sent to state prisons? How do people get allocated?
I have a hard time speaking to that because I've never lived in a prison. By and large, people are housed in state publicly run prisons. Where that is not true is in the immigration detention context. People are making money hand over fist off of immigration detention, which is, if anything in this call should be like the most grotesque thing you've heard tonight. That's it. That people are making money off putting children in cages away from their parents.
I'm so grateful that there are, freedom fighters and warriors out there like using their lives and their hearts and their education and their entire soul to fight for the voiceless. Can you tell me one more time everything about your company and how people can donate to it, the website, the Twitter, the Instagram, like full thing?
Yep. So the company's called Partners for Justice. We are at partnersforjustice.org. You can donate on the website. There's a lot of information about who our advocates are and their bios and their faces. You can see these amazing, because they are the true amazingness of this program, right? They are the young people who chose right out of college to take the leap of going into the trenches and helping pull people toward freedom. That is amazing. And they are amazing. The reason what we do is important is that we are trying to not make it any less complicated than human life actually is. We meet people where they are. We listen to the communities we serve. We do what they want. We follow their priorities. We are definitely not another outside organization telling people what they really need. So when you give money to us, you're giving money to a service that listens to impacted community members and gives them what they are asking for as much as we possibly can. So that's the deal. It's also a really cool job. If anybody's listening who wants to, it's a real job. You get paid. It's a 2-year job with benefits. You're an employee of the Public Defender's Office for 2 years. And then we actually fund grad school prep. We do networking and mentoring. We try to basically make sure that when we're building an advocate class, we're prioritizing people who come from the community we serve, who are personally impacted by the system. That's not everybody we hire. I mean, you can be just like me, like a nice privileged white girl from Iowa, you can still get a job. No, but we do try to prioritize people who have not had the red carpet rolled out in life.
Yeah.
Because then part of the nature of the program is to professionally roll out the red carpet. It's a very cool job opportunity. It's a very cool family to be a part of.
I want to be a part of it. Can I be like 35 and be part of this? Yeah. Can you? Can you be old and do it?
We have historically hired people who are recently out of college, but that does not mean that they went to college early in life. And we also are flexible on the college thing. They should still apply because that's really cool. And we're trying to make this program inclusive and flexible, not yet another box checking thing.
I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to have this blind date with me. I feel like I know you inside and out. I'd like it not to be our last. All right, I will let you go. You are such a fucking wonder and a wizard. Thank you for your time. Great. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
I want to give a huge thank you to Emily Galvin, the sexiest mathematical poet I have ever met. Let me tell you, I did a Zoom call with her and she was just luminous. Just watching her eyes light up as she talked about the ways in which she's found to help people was so inspiring. So I want you to go check out her website. That is thejusticecollaborative.com. That is TheJusticecollaborative.com. It is up to all of us to make sure that we are doing everything that we can. There's never been a better time for all of us to vote people in who are going to dedicate their lives to making sure that the rules are fair. Now, it's going to take a really long time, and I'm not saying there's some magic, bean of which to climb up some stock and fix all this shit, but every single day, you need to be thinking how you can help others that have it less fortunate than you. I don't even care how bad you fucking have it. There's somebody who has it worse. So get up off your ass. Don't forget to register to vote. Don't forget to make your friends register to vote. We are just days away from a historic election. Do not be the dickhead that stays at home. As for me, I just had super hardcore surgery. I am in fucking pain up the wazoo. And I am laying in my bed, hopped up on painkillers, staring at palm trees, waving in the sky. It is a weird, weird world that I'm living in right now, but this too shall pass, this too will heal. And if you are experiencing pain or loneliness and you want someone to talk to, don't forget you can always email me at genuinelyfalse@gmail.com. You can always check out me on my Instagram at Dr. Z Nightingale. You can head on over to my website at www.zoenightingale.com. And don't forget to head on over to Promescent, that's PROMESCNT.com. They sell all kinds of things that help your sexual organs function better. So if you're a guy who wants to last just a little bit longer in bed, or a girl who wants to get a pussy as wet as an otter's pocket but don't know how, head on over to their website. They've got all kinds of cool shit for you to check out. And if you put my name in the discount checkout box at Zoe15, they will give you all kinds of discounts. So wherever you are in the world, I send you so much love and light. The world is getting weirder and we are getting stronger. So good luck, Godspeed, and don't forget that inordinate joviality can atone for an entire lack of class. Good night, guys.